Together, developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond limits.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now, as it will help getting our show to others and help us get to our next milestone. Make sure to catch us streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire TV on the Purpose Place Network, and catch our exclusive members-only content, Going Deeper Within, on the Lions Guide Academy. Today, we are speaking with Sandra Noemi Torres. Sandra is a marketing and growth strategist, a fractional CMO, and author of The Speaking Effect. She is also the creator of United Latinas and a fellow co-author of the Latino Leadership Playbook. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Enrique. I'm truly honored to be here and share the space with you.
Oh, well, we're equally honored. And I tell you, we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. We're on the last 2 weeks. So I'm fortunate to have you with me as a fellow co-author, but a person that is leading in the Latino spectrum. So we're very thankful for all the work that you're doing. And folks, we will be speaking about leadership's secret weapon, communication that moves people. Before we get into that conversation, Sandra, tell us a little bit about you that the audience maybe not know.
Okay, so I born in Puerto Rico. For those that are, I grew up in New Jersey, so grew up in the Northeast with that mentality. I've lived in several different places. Like you mentioned, I spent my career in marketing, advertising, leadership development, and I'm doing fractional work now, and a serial entrepreneurial in essence, because I have multiple businesses that I manage, and United Latinas being one of them, which is a very mission-driven organization. So thank you for bringing that up. ¿Qué más? I'm back in New Jersey. You know, I've lived in different places. I lived in Florida like you, but I was in South Florida. And now I'm back up in the Northeast, and I just feel this is home. I love the mountains. I love the topography here, and I love it. La diferencia.
Yeah, and I grew up in the Bronx, so I know very well Northeast of the states. It's a place that you can enjoy. It is a place that can become chaotic at times, and that's why I'm in Florida. But Sandra, I wanted to ask you, as leaders, we often underestimate the power of our words. So what is a common or the most common mistake leaders make in communication, and how can they quickly correct it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the most common mistake is that people speak to be heard, not to be understood, right? So sometimes you can hear someone, and sometimes they may sound like they're rambling, and sometimes you could see that they feel that they're rambling. They're not exactly saying anything that is landing, right? So what we really want to do is speak to be understood, really understand the audience that you're speaking to, and really create a conversation that makes you, some people try to create these scenarios of leadership, right? But you have to intrinsically believe that, and believe that you are meeting someone where they are. You understand their viewpoint. There's something about them, that commonality. The string that connects people together, right? There's always a string that connects different types of people interested in different things. So I think it's really speaking to be understood and communicating in such a way that you are reaching people right where they're at, and letting them know that through your words.
Yeah, very powerful. Communication that doesn't land doesn't move anything, right? So it's very
Exactly.
powerful to take on that knowledge as leaders, especially if you're just rambling, not landing your communication, and then you're wondering why things are not progressing. So wonderful share there. Now, in your book, The Speaking Effect, you highlight communication as a tool for influence. So how can leaders use this tool without crossing into manipulation?
That's so funny that we bring this topic up. I just had a speaker circle training that I also do monthly trainings for people interested in developing their public speaking skills. And we talked about persuasion, and often how people feel, when they're speaking. They don't want to feel any kind of way or like they're salesy, right? But influence is service. When you can influence someone, you are serving that individual, right? Manipulation, on the other hand, is self serving. I'm telling you something and I'm speaking to you because I want something in return. Versus, I'm telling you something that's going to motivate you, that's going to inspire you to do something, and maybe you do something with me, but I'm not speaking to that point, right? So it's really understanding what is it that I'm trying to achieve here. People connect with people, so really speaking to someone is and influencing a decision that they may have is serving them. We want to know, we want to feel empowered or see another light or somebody else's perspective, versus somebody saying, hey, you should do this, and this is gonna be the, like there's a right way and a wrong way for sales. Having been in sales, and marketing and business ownership is sales all the time, right? But really understanding that the art of it all is really communicating with authenticity and really serving that other individual, right? Serving or your audience that you're speaking to. How are you serving them today, right? Be clear on that. Write that question down before you either have a meeting or before you're going to speak in front of anybody. How are you serving those individuals today? And how can you make their life better in some way, right? That's the question you should have going in to craft any messaging or your thoughts or ideas, versus I'm going to get this out of them, or my goal is to get this out of them. It should be, how could I serve them? How could I do what's right for them, and inspire them to be motivated by the words that I'm choosing to use when I'm sharing a story or sharing a point or a message.
Yeah, it's so important for leaders to understand that when you communicate, the very first thing that we as humans do is that we feel. And if a person is feeling some kind of way after you're speaking to them and it doesn't give them that warm and fuzzy, then
Yeah.
everything from there goes either uphill or downhill, right? So as you're communicating as leaders, understand that people are feeling your communication first, and it should lead you in the right direction. So great and important points there. Now, from your experience as a CMO, how does marketing strategy parallel leadership strategy, and what lessons can leaders borrow from marketers?
When it comes to marketing, you know, marketing is really about understanding people deeply, right? You can't be a great marketer if you don't understand people truly deeply, their pain points, their desires, what they value. We have to be able to do that in order to be great at marketing. So I think that absolutely it mirrors leadership, right? You're marketing a vision, an idea, this thing where you want people to go, or this perspective that you want people to feel, right? So I think great marketers test, they test different things, they listen to people, they adjust what they're going to say, based on the input, right? We have to be flexible. We have to understand people. We have to, and that's marketing. You got to divert, you got to test, you got to do things, and leadership too. You got to test. Different audiences resonate with something more than others, right? You might have a clear message that speaks to a particular group of audience where everybody can, in their head, say, um, yeah, I resonate with that. And sometimes you can be in a room where a speaker may say something and you're like, yeah, that doesn't, I don't resonate with that at all. Right. So you have to really know your audience, and that's important in marketing. That's important in leadership. Know who you're speaking to. And great marketers, again, we test, we listen, we adjust, and leadership too, don't assume, um, don't assume at all, gather feedback and refine your messaging or what it is that you're saying and what you're sharing. And you're going to get further, right? You're going to achieve more with that. So,
Yeah, for sure. Now, testing creates in itself some levels of uncertainty, and leadership often requires speaking into uncertainty. So, how can leaders craft the messages that inspire trust, even when all the answers aren't clear?
I'm very emotional when I speak. And, uncertainty, when people feel uncertainty, um, that is fertile ground, for building trust and or lack thereof, right? So if you have an audience, um, or you're going into something, right? That is a great opportunity to learn and to build from the point of uncertainty, right? But you don't need to really have all the answers. Nobody's expecting you to have all of the answers. You have to show clarity and conviction in what it is that you do know, right? And be vulnerable and say, you know what, we don't know this, or I don't know this, but I do know this, and I think this is very important. And this may lead us all down to understanding this other thing better, right? So I don't feel that, I don't think there's any leader out there that has all of the answers. They have a perspective, and some of those perspectives are beautiful. And we can gain a lot from listening to those perspectives, and it's their viewpoint. And sometimes your upbringing is very different than somebody else's. So their perspective, you're like, you may not resonate with that. But you can, we can deliver and communicate people by being vulnerable. I think we respect people the most when they're able to be vulnerable with us and show us they're not perfect. There's flaws. We can have that conversation, you know, but it's really about focusing where you want to go, right? What is it that you want to do? What is the message you want to share? Or if you're leveling up your career or starting a business and trying to communicate with business owners, you know, really being clear on those messages and understanding your where you're vulnerable and where you're really strong at that. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
All right. Well, as you was talking, I was thinking about leadership delivery, and I had a conversation with a fellow colleague, and she reminds me, even still today, almost 10 years since I stated this, and I was telling her, I said, delivery is everything when you're talking about leaders communicating. And she always reminds me that because she's always thinking about this. So many leaders focus on what they say, but not how they say it. And so, how does delivery shape credibility, and what practical steps can leaders take to improve their presence?
I love this topic. This again was, we did a session on this and it was wonderful because your words absolutely matter, but your tone, your energy, your presence, how you're showing up carries far more weight. People will read that before they're listening to you, right? We'll know if we want to listen by your tone, by the energy, by how you show up. And we are interconnected beings, right? So if you're showing up as a leader in a very like low tone, or you're trying to get by that day, you know, people or your team's going to feel that, and they're not going to feel as energized and amped up for the work, right? So how we show up is critical. Our energy, right? The tonality of the words that you use, right? If I say, Enrique, we're going to go to this event today, versus Enrique, we're going to go to this event today, which one gets you like, oh, I want to go to that one, right? So it's how, and it is a beautiful a gift when you learn to use it. And to me, it's really being authentic with who you are and what you really believe about that thing, right? If you want your team to be excited, get excited, right? If you're not excited, you're gonna find things that are gonna get you excited, right? And get other people excited about those things. But if you're a leader, your job is to get your team wanting to do their best, wanting to give it their all by your how you show up, how your energy shows up. It's like almost miraculous when you can walk into, and I've walked into sales floors and leadership groups, and there are certain teams within organizations that they're there because they have to be there. They don't seem happy at all. They're just doing what the company has told them to do. And there's spaces, and you can turn around those spaces. That's a wonderful opportunity to influence and get people to get on the page of joy and high energy, right? But there's other spaces where people already come that way, and you know automatically they have great leadership. They're showing up ready to learn, ready to go, ready to, in that mode. And that's how we want our teams to be, high energy, ready to deliver. Now, life is an ebb and flow. Things happen. Problems is our life, right? But in those moments, and when you develop a team that much, there's more empathy within that environment where people understand, he's always on, today he's off, something's going on, and that team leadership allows that understanding and communication within a team allows you a leader to be respected. Most certainly, right? We respect the people that look like they care, that sound like they care about me or the things around me, my life, right? We want to feel like we matter when we're giving our best to an organization, and people feel that with the tone and the energy that in which you show up. So it's how you want to use those words. What is it that you want to convey to your audience? Do you want them to, is this something serious that they need to know? And bringing solutions to the table, your job as a leader, and encouraging other people's thought leadership to that table, and showcasing that they matter, their opinions matter, their ideas matter, and us as a team, we're going to get further together. But showing up and playing with the tonality, and I would do that today, right? If you're listening to this, or I would just play with how you say things to people, even the same sentence, and how their response shifts, and I would do it with people that that wouldn't expect that out of you, but that same applies if you're leading a team, and you're off that day, even coming and saying, guys, I'm off today. I'm not feeling my best. I've had something that's happened, but I want to show up best for you guys. Your team is going to want to give their best to someone that's vulnerable like that, and is, just putting it out there and saying, today is, I know I come a certain way. Today is not that day. And that's beautiful. Your team will understand that, and that tone and that presence that you set with them, I think, is profound relationship for you and your teams.
Yeah, and the power that you've had over them or have given them throughout this time, in those moments, that's where you see all your investment come in and shore everybody up, right? And so that's how you know a leader has prepared their people for times like this, because we know we're not always at 100. Sometimes we are the one receiving the challenges of the day. And so when you see a team rally around their leader, is proof that that leader has been preparing them for moments like these. So great comment there. Now, we spoke about and highlighted your book earlier in the conversation, and I know that you've mentioned things that you have been participating in. So what do you have coming up, and where can the viewer or the listener follow or support you?
Multiple things. If you're a Latina, you can follow our United Latinas channel on LinkedIn or YouTube. If you are a leader that's trying to develop some public speaking skills and want to connect with me, you can contact me at contact@sandranoemi.com. If you're looking for someone to come into your organization and share, this particular skill on really being able to speak and articulate your thoughts without feeling like, any kind of way, but feeling truly authentic to you, and we're all individuals. So everybody's, different in their approach of that. But connect with me on LinkedIn, Sandra Torres. It's linkedin.com/in/Sandra Torres.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, folks. We'll have that as part of the video and the show notes so that you can follow Sandra Noemi and support her in all her endeavors. She's doing great things. We're very proud of her. Celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. She's one that we do celebrate. And folks, today's episode is sponsored by the Global Trends magazine, the Outlier Project, Fantail Services, Ascend Meditations, and Chop AI. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. Tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.